We'll begin with a refuge prayer and Bodhichitta. And I will say this 3 times in English, so you can just follow along with me. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the sublime Sangha. By the merit of my listening to the Dharma, may I reach Buddhahood to benefit beings. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and sublime Sangha. By the merit of my listening to the Dharma, may I reach Buddhahood to benefit beings. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and the sublime Sangha. By the merit of my listening to the Dharma, may I reach Buddhahood to benefit beings. All right, may it be so. So our topic is the 6 realms, and really we need to begin with talking about samsara, because that is what brings us to any of these 6 realms. And just like the realm that we're in right now, this human realm, there are 5 other realms that to those beings in those realms feels just as real as this one. So samsara is commonly translated as cyclic existence, or cycle of existence, etc. And it can be defined as the continual repetitive cycle of birth and death that arises for ordinary beings because of their grasping and fixating on a self. So specifically, samsara refers to the process of cycling through one rebirth after another within these 6 realms of existence, where each realm can be understood as either a physical realm or a psychological state characterized by a particular type of suffering. So samsara arises out of ignorance or avidya, and is characterized by dukkha. You often hear dukkha, and it's translated often as suffering or anxiety or dissatisfaction. So in the Buddhist view, liberation from samsara is possible by following the Buddhist path. So when the Buddha attained enlightenment, as you know, under the Bodhi tree, it was 2,600 years or so ago, the first teaching he did 49 days after his enlightenment to those 5 seekers that he started out with after his enlightenment in Bodh Gaya, he taught the 4 Noble Truths. And primarily, he said that there is suffering, there is dukkha, and there's a cause for that suffering. And the good news is there's a way out of that suffering, and that way is the Noble Eightfold Path. So samsara is the continual, repetitive cycle of birth and death, as we said, that arises from our ignorance, from our grasping, and our misapprehension about the nature of reality. So we cycle through one rebirth after another through these 6 existences. And each of these 6 realms can be understood as a physical realm, as I said, or a psychological state characterized by a specific type of suffering. So there's a 19th century Tibetan Lama Patrul Rinpoche, who explained the cyclic nature of samsara. He said that the term samsara, the wheel or round of existence, is used here to mean going round and round from one place to another in a circle, like a potter's wheel. And, if you've seen the Wheel of Life, there is 6 sections where each of these states are portrayed in a graphic picture. And so this wheel or round of existence, this going round and round from place to place, no matter, sometimes the example is used when a fly is trapped in a closed jar. No matter where he flies, it cannot get out. Likewise, whether we are born in the higher or lower realms, the so-called higher or lower realms, we are never outside of samsara. The upper parts of the jar is like the higher realms of gods and men, and the lower part like the 3 unfortunate realms, we could say. And it is said that samsara is a circle because we turn around and around, taking rebirth in one after another of these 6 realms as a result of our own actions, our own karmic causes and conditions, which, whether positive or negative, are tainted by our clinging and our misapprehending the nature of reality. And as I mentioned, this samsara arises out of avidya, or ignorance, and is characterized by dukkha, suffering, anxiety, and dissatisfaction. So in the Buddhist cosmology, typically identifies 6 realms of existence. They are the gods, the demigods, humans. These are considered the upper realms, and the 3 lower realms of the animals, hungry ghosts, and hell realms. These realms can be understood, as we were saying, both from a psychological point of view and as aspects of the Buddhist cosmology. And these 6 realms are typically divided, as we were saying, into 3 higher and 3 lower realms. The 3 higher realms, again, being the gods, the demigods, and humans, and the 3 lower realms, the realms of the animals, the hungry ghosts, and the hell beings. And there are various stages within those realms. You may have heard of hot hells and cold hells. And every aspect of these realms has kind of a higher and lower vibration within it. But it is an imaginary dreamlike state of which is not lasting or permanent. We cycle in and out of these until our karma is exhausted, and then we're on to the next realm, again, based on certain causes and conditions and our understanding of the nature of reality. And in each of these realms, there is a Buddha. And unfortunately, if you are a hell being and you are continually in a state of suffering, intense suffering, your mind generally does not turn to the Dharma. But it is possible. You can be freed, just like we can be freed from our human existence, and we can attain Buddhahood in this very life. It can happen like that in any of the realms because they are totally empty of any reality whatsoever, except our wrong view. And we create it just like we've created our own human realm. And it is, as I said, just as real for each of those beings in each of those 6 realms as we're experiencing right now. And we take it to be very real and solid. So just to explain a little bit about the God realm or Deva realm, the gods lead long and enjoyable lives, full of pleasure and abundance, but they spend their lives pursuing meaningless distractions and never think to practice the Dharma. So when death comes to them, they are completely unprepared. Without realizing it, they have completely exhausted their good karma, which was the cause for them being reborn in the God realm. And they suffer through being reborn in the lower realms. And that becomes clear to them about the time they've exhausted their good karma and they see their next rebirth and feel the suffering. And they say that the suffering and of the God realms when they are forced to leave that Deva realm, which is so enjoyable and full of pleasure. There's tremendous suffering at that point. And the other upper realm is the Demigod Realm, or the Ashura Realm, as it is called. And in the Ashura Realm, demigods have this pleasure and abundance almost as much as the gods, but they spend their time fighting and quarreling amongst themselves or making war on the gods. When they make war on the gods, they always lose, since the gods are much more powerful, and the demigods suffer from that situation as well. And there's constant fighting and jealousy, and from being killed and wounded in their wars, there's suffering. So there's our realm. We have the good fortune of being born in a human realm, and it says that humans suffer from hunger and thirst and heat and cold and separation from friends and being attacked by enemies, not getting what they want and getting what they don't want. They also suffer from the general suffering of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Yet the human realm is considered to be the most suitable realm for the practicing of the Dharma, because humans humans are not completely distracted by pleasure like the gods or demigods, or by the pain and suffering like the beings in the lower realms. The animal realms operate on the instinctual level. Animals operate on the instinctual level. They are not capable of rational thought or logic, that their actions lead to consequences. Therefore, they are unable to reflect on their situation or practice the Dharma. Many wild animals suffer from being attacked and eaten by other animals, or killed for their meat or their pelts or their other aspects. Many domestic animals suffer from being used as beasts of burden and slaughtered, for food and such. And there's what's called the hungry ghost realm, which you read about, or the preta realm. And these hungry ghosts suffer from extreme hunger and thirst. They wander constantly in search of food and drink, only to be miserably frustrated. Because anytime they come close to actually getting what they want, they cannot be satisfied by it. They are seen as having big bellies, and a little neck and little mouth. They really can't eat or drink sufficiently. For example, they see a stream of pure, clear water in the distance, but by the time they get there, the stream is dried up. And hungry ghosts have the huge bellies and the long, thin necks. And on rare occasions, do they manage to find something to eat and drink, and the food or water burns their throats as it goes down into their bellies, causing them intense agony. So this, these realms, as we were saying, have a psychological aspect. So greed is the mental kind of catalyst for being born there. And the hell realm of beings endure unimaginable suffering for eons. Their lives are long and their suffering is intense. There are actually 18 different types of hells that are talked about in the sutras, each inflicting a different kind of torment. In the hot hells, beings suffer from unbearable heat and continual torments of various kinds. In the cold hells, beings suffer unbearable cold. And there's the crushing hells. There's a variety of them. So we don't have to go into great detail with that. But these are the 6 realms, which based on certain causes and conditions, we find ourselves at the time of our death can be born there. But for us, we have the good fortune of being born human, for starters, and not in any of those lower states. or even in the higher states. But we also have the ability to practice Dharma. And the Buddha has taught here, and there are teachers who still profess the Dharma, teach the Dharma, and we have the good fortune of listening to that Dharma. And this, again, is not an accident. We have had many lives, and we have practiced as practitioners. This Shakyamuni Buddha was the fourth Buddha of 1,000 Buddhas in this fortunate eon, 1,002 Buddhas, as it is said in the sutras. But we have the good fortune of having contacted the Dharma, having teachers who we have studied with and have actually practiced. And as we continue to do that, we have pretty much guaranteed that we will not be born in the lower realms. It is said for those who, for example, do the Chenrezi practice and chant the 6-syllable mantra of Chenrezi, they will never be born in lower realms. So this is a very good fortune for us. Any particular question about anything so far about those realms?
Lama, are you going to circle back around to the psychological aspects?
Yeah, I will.
I think somebody else had a question.
Are the beings in the lower realms, are they considered human beings?
Are they considered?
Human?
No. This is the human realm. That is a different realm. Hell beings have a different reality than humans. So they may look very different. As we were talking about the pretas and of course animals, we see the animals. We don't have the vision as those who have attained the wisdom eye that can see these different realms and can even go to those different realms untouched by the pain of hells, for example. But there are Buddhas who are there to support them and to create the circumstances and create the possibilities for liberation, even in the lower realms or the upper realms. But because of their situation, the unbearable torment or the overwhelming pleasure, they don't turn their mind to the Dharma in the same way. So no, we can't say that they are humans. Human realms is a realm of, there are other human realms, there are other planets where humans exist, but they are human realms. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay.
When you were talking about the realms, well, you were talking about some of the realms being empty of reality, so suffering can be removed from, like, for example, the hungry ghosts and hell beings. Is that all realms that you were talking about that are?
Yes, all realms are illusory. And just like we experience this particular realm, but we can become enlightened in this realm. You know, as Milarepa demonstrated, in this very realm, it is possible to attain complete Buddhahood. And you can in any of the realms, but it's more difficult. So among these 6 realms, the human realm is considered to offer the best opportunity to practice the Dharma, thereby offering the best chance to attain liberation from samsara. So, you know, we can judge the value of these 6 realms. The Buddhists would say the best realm is the human realm. And why is this the best realm? Well, because we have a choice. The gods don't have a choice. Why? Because they're too happy. When you are too happy, you have no choice. You don't consider. You become arrogant, and that is the pride is the emotion in the God realm. And they obviously have done some good deeds. They have been generous. They have been of benefit, but their activity in that way was prideful And they were doing it not necessarily, to benefit beings, but for the aggrandizement of their own ego, to be thought of in a good way, or to be benefit themselves in some way, that it wasn't done out of an altruistic motivation. Their motivation was to promote their own well-being. But they did good works. In so doing, they attained the level of being born in the God realms. So they in the God realms, to use that as an example, they're arrogant. The hell realm, no choice, too painful. The human realm, not too happy, also not too painful. So when you are not so happy and not so much in pain, what does that mean? Well, a step closer to normality of mind. When you are really, really excited and in ecstasy, there's no normality of mind. We're not in an even state. We're in a state of excitement and this pleasure. And when you are totally in pain, you don't experience what we would consider normality of mind either. So someone in the human realm has the best chance again of acquiring that kind of even placement. We talk about shamatha, we can do that. So someone in the human realm has the best chance of acquiring that mind. And this is why in the Buddhist prayers, you will always read, ideally, may we get out of this place, but if we can't do it within this life, may we be reborn in the human realm and not in other realms. So the equivalence of the cosmology and psychology from the Buddhist point of view is the realms of samsara are descriptions of both, again, psychological states of mind and physical cosmological realms. There's actually, just like we are in this realm, there's a physical realm that we experience. And from the Buddhist perspective, rebirth in the different realms is determined by our karma, which is directly determined by our psychological states. So for example, feeling anger can be said to lead to rebirth into a new realm. And this rebirth can be viewed on an instantaneous level in which beings being angry can make someone feel very heated. We say they're hot-headed, but on a longer term level, in which habitual tendencies to anger can cause someone to be born in this heated situation, hot hells, and an extreme habituation to anger and violence can lead to rebirth in one of the hell realms. So that is anger in all of its forms. The more vicious, the worse the consequences. So on the other hand, feelings of compassion and love can lead to rebirth in the realm where these feelings are dominant, such as there are certain God realms. There are God realms that are more wholesome in a way. In particular situations within the human or animal realm, you can have that as well. So there are possibilities to experience escape from those realms. It is said that the Buddha was at one time in a hell realm and had compassion for a person who was being beaten, and that feeling of compassion immediately took him out of the hell realm. But usually you are so absorbed in your own physical pain that it just, we have habitual patterns, and it just creates more of that anger, more of that violence in one's behavior. So the key to understanding this Buddhist cosmology, cosmological scheme, lies in the principle of psychology. What I mean by this is that in the traditional understanding, the various realms of existence relate rather closely to certain commonly, and maybe somewhat not so commonly, experienced states of mind. just maybe more intense than the way we might experience it as human beings. But this can be appreciated by considering more fully the Buddhist understanding of the nature of karma. At the root of karma, which means action, is considered a mental act or intention. Our karma is always relates to the intention, what we're creating in our mind stream in that way. So it's considered a mental act or intention. It is an aspect of our mental life. And it is intention that I'm calling karma. And having formed the intention, one performs acts. And karma means action by body, speech, or mind. Thus, so the acts of body and speech are driven by the underlying intention or will. And they are unwholesome or wholesome because they are motivated by unwholesome or wholesome intentions. Acts of body and speech are then the end products of a particular kind of mindset, a particular kind of mentality. At the same time, karma can exist as a simple act of will, a forceful mental intention or volition that does not lead to any act of body or speech. Generally speaking, each realm is said to be a result of one of these six main negative emotions. Pride, we mentioned with the God realms, and the Asuras, the jealousy, and the human realm, desire, and the animal realm, ignorance. We mentioned the predator realm, greed, and the hell realms, anger. So we have these six realms. And loosely, you could say when perception comes more from aggression, you experience things in a hellish way. Right now in the human realm, you know, what actions can result from anger, hatred. We see crimes all the time that are done out of hatred or anger. So you can see when this perception comes from an aggression, you experience a hellish mind. When your perception is filtered through attachment, grasping, or miserliness, you experience the hungry ghost realm. When your perception is filtered through ignorance, then you experience the animal realm. When you have a lot of pride, you are reborn in the God realm. When you have jealousy, you are reborn in the Asura or Demigod Realm. When you have passion, attachment, desire, you're born in the human realm. So our body and mind are under the influence of kleshas. You know, you've heard that word, kleshas are habitual patterns and karma. Contemporary teachers emphasize that samsara is not a place or external environment, but rather samsara refers to one's own body and mind under the influence of the kleshas. So we can experience in the course of a day all of those realms to a certain degree. We may wake up and in an angry state, somebody may have said something to us and we really want some kind of revenge, or we're angry and upset, and then we get up and we shake that off a little bit, and then we take a shower and we get cleaned up, and we feel pretty good, we look good, we're feeling kind of good about ourselves, and we're more in the God realms at that point. So we can go from one extreme to another in the course of the day. So, you know, we tend to say, oh yes, this is samsara. We're all in samsara. And we tend to think this external environment is samsara. We think, oh, America is samsara. We say samsara is just too much. meaning my job is too much or everything around me is too much. I've got to get out of samsara. But samsara actually is not an environment we live in. It's in our own mind that we create this samsaric condition. Samsara is our body and mind under the influence of kleshas and karma. Our body and mind that make us continually circle within the 6 realms. Samsara can refer to the present body and mind, or it can refer to our process of circling in the 6 realms in these different aspects. So we tend to, we talked about this process of circling in the 6 realms, taking one body and mind after another body and mind of a god, body and mind of a hell being, body and mind of a human. We've cycled in all of those realms already. We don't have the recollection of that necessarily, but since beginningless time, we have not become enlightened yet, which means we've been in samsara. That's samsara, cyclic existence. Any other questions?
I have a question. So we're in the human realm, and so is it correct that you're saying that we in the human realm have like states of samsara or states of consciousness where we kind of like almost are in the other realms of the gods and the animal realms and things like that? What when we get caught up into these, like you said, anger and ignorance and things like that?
Yes, we can experience that to a lesser degree than in the realm itself, but you can see how that influences us. And if we continue in that state of mind, particularly at the time of death, it's considered very important that at the time of death, we use that time, or in the bardo, we will, because of our causes and conditions, because of our habitual patterns, we will find ourselves in those either negative realms or the lower realms, or in the higher realms, or hopefully we will liberate ourselves in the bardo at the time of death. And that's really the next teaching that we should talk about is, our practice is basically to guide us at the time of death so we don't enter those lower realms. And there are practices that we do to promote at the time of death being projected into the pure realms and no longer which is not characterized by dukkha and suffering and anxiety and dissatisfaction, but compassion, loving kindness, and our practice, which we are doing, have done, and hopefully will continue to do up to the time of our death, which will prepare us for that. But to a lesser degree, yes, you know anger, greed, these other aspects of these mental, emotional, psychological states that we go in and out of. But it is a matter, again, of intention and to observe our mind, becoming mindful of these states of consciousness and transmuting them in a way that we can really see the empty aspect of striving and not get lost in our kleshas, these negative emotions, these habitual patterns that have brought us, I think we can say, fortunately, to this human realm. But it's a fortunate realm only if we use it as such, and we use this time to really purify our negative karma, and we do the actions in body, speech, and mind that are meritorious. So the Buddha's teaching is to cultivate virtue, avoid wrongdoing and harm, and to tame our mind. That is basically the teachings of the Buddha. And as we do that, we purify our tendencies towards these negative predispositions and actually create positive situations for ourselves and create the merit and consequently the wisdom to not continue to cycle in samsara.
With a question, Lama?
Yes.
Lama, on Saturdays, we've been reading Barter, The Interval of Possibility. And when you've missed all your opportunities for enlightenment or to make it to the pure realm, they were saying that we start looking for our new body, and that goes by our mindset. So if our mind looking for a new body sees people drinking ambrosia and happy all the time and lounging on big cushions, and we direct ourselves to that realm. The same as if we're constantly angry and that is so familiar to us that just directs us right to the hell realms as well.
That's right. It's like that. It's where we'll go where our mind goes. And so what kind of mind are you cultivating?
So is when you're dying or your death, is that temporary state that you're in when you were dying, if something is it a cause of your karma throughout your life, or can it be interrupted by well, it's definitely a cause of your karma. I'm kind of answering my own question, but let's say something and you're dying, you're going through a lot of pain at your death. There are people that can go through pain and maintain a calmer attitude versus people that go through pain and really cannot escape it in their minds when they're dying. Is this a benefit, this is the cause of our experience and our practice, versus a cause, it's all part of our karma at that point, whether we have a peaceful passing and have a more focused move to the next realm or to enlightenment, or whether we're in pain and suffering so much where we can't even concentrate on that experience.
Yeah, that is the purpose of our practice. I mean, we are going to experience pain until the time that we die. And of course, no one dies. Our mind goes on. There's no death. But how we tame our mind is very important. So when we have suffering right now, how do we deal with it? They talk about the getting shot with the second arrow. So we're all going to suffer. That's Buddha's first law. There is suffering, but that suffering, if it is seen with the correct view of emptiness, where do we when we have a pain? Where does that pain come from? Where do we experience that pain? We experience it in our mind, and so if we can just embrace that and change that, instead of shooting ourselves with the so-called second arrow. Oh, this is terrible. Why does this always happen to me? This is, and we just go on, and we just, again, create more psychological pain for ourselves. And we say that our karma in this human realm is birth, old age, sickness, and death. Those are painful concepts, but they are just concepts. If we become in our practice able to embrace suffering and even use it as a vehicle to benefit others, whether it's like Tonglen, oh, may my suffering be of benefit to others, that is a practice of compassion. And we can change that suffering, instead of creating more suffering for ourselves, to actually use it as a vehicle, as a skillful means to generate compassion and loving kindness for all beings. Everything serves to further if we have the right mind, if we have the right practice, if we have the right view, which is essential.
I have
So
a
the way
question. Oh,
the way we use the our experience, is we bring everything to the path. So what is this suffering situation? And everyone is different. Everyone experiences suffering differently, but we can use that suffering as a vehicle to enhance our own deeper realization. I know it's easier said than done, but you asked the question. If we're waiting to do that to the time of our death, it's too late. We're not going to be able to realize this suffering and be able to disengage from it and not shoot ourselves with that so-called second arrow. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Does that make sense when I say shoot yourself with a second arrow?
I've got all sorts of arrows. Yeah, no, that totally does.
Yes. We keep shooting ourselves.
Thank you, Lama. Amy, I think you had a question.
yeah. So we talk about if the lower beings don't have the possibility of getting towards enlightenment because they're focused on their pain and suffering.
Yeah, they do have the possibility.
They
but
have the
are focused
possibility,
on-
yeah, I should say that, correct, sorry. So, but then if at the time of death, your state of mind impacts your rebirth, then how could a being in a lower realm get out of that?
It's not so easy. That's the situation. Again, so you must have the seeds of compassion in your mind stream to be able to call it up and to be able to use it in a positive way. It is not so easy. It is, you probably heard the example of a blind turtle who is in the ocean, and every 100 years comes up, and there is I'll use the example of a large inner tube. It says a yoke, but a yoke is something that goes around the ox's neck as it's pulling the wagon. But this turtle comes up every 100 years, blind turtle, and this inner tube, we'll say, is being blown around this ocean, and the chances of our being born human is pretty slim. It's the same possibility as this turtle coming up every 100 years and sticking its head in the center of this inner tube. So unless we practice, unless we have the correct volition and view, and we are taming our mind and are mindful, the chances, particularly at the time of death, if you are fearful of that and you don't have the training, the chances of you coming back as human is slim. You are probably going to go to a lower realm. But as I say, you are fortunate. You have been practicing. If you can think of the mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, or visualize Chenrezi, or Amitabha, Om Amidewa Ri. If you can do that at the time of death, your rebirth in a pure realm is greatly enhanced. And certainly a higher realm is enhanced. But unless you do that, you're blown like a snowflake in the wind. People say, can I direct my next incarnation? Generally, no, you can't. You are forced by your karma, blown like a snowflake in the wind, or a leaf in the blizzard, or whatever, snowflake in the blizzard, based on karmic causes and conditions. So we have to train our mind.
Isn't it also true, or is it true that, for example, if you had an animal, like a pet or a child who cannot speak, then if you practice Dharma around them to where they can hear and be subjected to the practice of the Dharma, then is that something that they can use for, I guess, increase their chances of being reborn in a higher realm?
Yes, it is said that just hearing the 6-syllable mantra will prevent one from the lower realms. So yes, the more you can, talk to your animals and within earshot, say the mantra or do those kinds of things, you would be enhancing their possibilities of rebirth in a higher realm. But because they don't have, that's why it's ignorance. They really can't put 2 and 2 together, literally and figuratively, to know that certain actions are going to be either beneficial or contrary to that. So a human being has more possibilities to grow into the Dharma than an animal does. But, those animals have also had experiences. This isn't their first rodeo either. They've been going around in samsara the same as we are. So it is a matter of cultivating the mind of enlightenment. And that is basically bodhicitta. That is the essence of the training, is the 2 wings of the bird, are wisdom, understanding emptiness, and cultivating bodhicitta and compassion. That will take you to complete liberation. But to keep that in mind, we have to start now, not at the time when our days are numbered. So that it is just a reflex, it is a natural response for us to cultivate this mind of enlightenment, loving kindness and compassion, bodhicitta. That is really the essence of the training.
One more question, Lama.
Lama,
Yes.
so when we do the Chinrezi practice and we are visiting each of the realms while we're doing that practice, if we direct our thoughts to these beings, whether they're the hell beings or the pretas, the animals, and we do the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, can we have an effect on these beings?
You can. You should think that you can, for sure. But you are definitely having an impact on your own mind stream. And so that helps to cultivate the loving kindness and compassion. In order to really benefit others in that way, when we do, prayers, we need to have some kind of connection with that individual. So can we benefit all beings in the hell realms or in all the realms throughout the multiverse and throughout, this situation? Yes, we can, but to a greater degree, the benefit is going to be to cultivate that loving kindness and compassion, to cultivate bodhicitta, so that you can be of true and lasting value by your own liberation. Then you can really be of benefit to beings. But we should definitely think that by our prayers, we definitely are saying we offer this for the benefit of all beings, and we should continue to do so.
I have a question. What do you say about like our Western concept of ghosts? Spirits, ghosts.
Yeah, there are those in the bardo that have left their former body and are disembodied. And if they have a strong attraction to a particular situation, we usually say that within 49 days, they probably have been reincarnated in a different body in a different realm, or they're off on their next adventure. But that is not necessarily so. There can be disembodied beings. There are ghosts. We talk about the hungry ghosts as a particular realm, but there are beings, and you may see those beings who have recently passed away. If you have a connection with them, they are likely to be in your environment, or if you, particularly a family member or someone you have a strong connection with, you may see those people. And in fact, they will know your mind. So we always want to create an auspicious prayer for them, because they know if you're wanting to be of benefit to them, or if you are being of benefit to them, as opposed to saying, oh, I wonder what happened to their watch. I would really like to have that watch. They will know that too. It is said that we're 9 times at least 9 times more psychic when we've disembodied, when we've left this body, which is very confining. You know, our mind and body, it's very constricted in what we can see, what we can hear. But when you're no longer embodied in this form, then your mind is free. It's free to travel anywhere it wants to in an instant. It has greater cognition and is a lot smarter. But also very can be pushed and pulled by those kleshas very strongly. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that's very interesting.
Okay, it is very interesting.
No, because I'm saying, like, you know, a lot of it I can really, you know, resonates with me, the whole, you know, explanation of that, of what you just explained.
Yes. And the closer you are to the person, the more likely you are to have a so-called dream, or to experience them in a particular way, or even see them, you know, in a kind of ephemeral way, or feel their presence in some kind of way. Yes, that's certainly possible. So when we say we want to generate, you know, the determination to be free of samsara, it's not that we have to move, you know, away from where we are right now. It's we have to free ourselves from the body and mind that are under the influence of our kleshas and our karma. So there are, the Buddha taught 84,000 different ways, again, to appeal to all the different consciousnesses there are, but we have to do the work, you know, we have to purify those habitual patterns that have continuously brought us and that keep us cycling in samsaric existence. That is a very important point to understand. The environment does influence us, but it's not the environment that's the root of the problem. Of course, we have to choose our environment well so that we can practice well, but we have to remember that the basic problem is being under the control of the kleshas, which cause us to take a body and mind and have unsatisfactory experiences over and over again. Remembering samsara is characterized by dukkha, suffering and anxiety and dissatisfaction. We should be fed up with it. And to a certain degree, one of the important things that should propel us in the practice of the Dharma is a renunciation, to a certain degree anyway, of samsara. You know, we don't want to suffer. We don't want to continue in this way. And the Buddha taught us a way to do that, the Noble Eightfold Path being the way he suggested in the Four Noble Truths. But we have to understand impermanence. Samsara is also characterized by impermanence. Contemporary, you know, scholars say that all rebirth is due to karma and is impermanent. So even these realms, all these different realms are impermanent. We may go into a hell realm, but it won't last forever. Nothing in samsara lasts forever. We will burn that karma as well and go to the next realm, depending upon the causes and conditions or the seeds of karma that we planted since beginningless time. In each rebirth, one is born and dies, just like we are born and we die in this realm. We are born and die in that, and you know, these 6 realms. And to be reborn elsewhere in accordance with the completely impersonal causal nature, it's one's own karma that, and the endless cycle of birth, rebirth, and re-death is samsara. We have to understand there's no evident beginning. We've been doing this, again, since beginningless time. From the Buddhist point of view, all beings have been suffering in samsara for unimaginable periods of time, and they will continue to do so until they attain liberation.
Why is 49 days the number that's given for you've probably moved on?
Yeah, I can't tell you why that is necessarily, but that just And, the 49 days are different than, the 24 hours that we may see in this life, in this realm. So 49 days, it may be something different than what we're thinking about 49 days, but it is basically based on one's karmic situation. It can be longer, it can be shorter. But we usually say, within 49 days. And I don't have an answer to that, why it's 49 days. But the Buddha also waited 49 days before he began teaching after his enlightenment. 7 times 7 seems to be an important number.
I have another question, if
Okay.
no one else has one. I'm trying to reconcile two ideas of thought here. One with pets and when they're close to, and when they're not doing well, when they're close to death. We talk about letting them pass on their own because the pain that they go through is cleansing their karma. But at the same time, talking here about your state of mind at your time of death can impact your rebirth. So how do I reconcile those two thoughts with when it comes to pets?
Yeah, they're not mutually exclusive. You try to keep the pet comfortable, certainly. You don't want them to suffer. But at the same time, you don't want to curtail their life prematurely. As you were saying, we are still working out our karma until death comes. And sometimes working out that karma in that state is an important part of that animal's process. So we keep them comfortable. And just like we would use certain substances like pills or other ways to connect them with the Dharma, there are different ways that you can connect them to the Dharma that you would want to do. So, but allowing them, usually we want to put them out of their misery for our misery. We just don't want to see them suffer. And rightfully so. And every situation is different. And if you do have to put an animal down in that way, then you can do things to do life release, for example, or give money to the Humane Society, or you try to support life in a different way. If you take a life, then you want to try to minimize the negative karma. There is a karma. If you kill the animal, you're taking that life prematurely. So that karma rests with you.
And you're
we-
saying, how do we get rid of this karma that we receive from putting down an animal? Get back to
you can make certain offerings to benefit other animals, so that it's almost a reparation. It is a way to kind of minimize or to neutralize the negative karma that comes from taking a life. So, and there are substances that are given at the time of death. There's a package, a death package that is, can't think of the name of it right now, but there are pills that are given to make a connection with the Buddhas. And there are different prayers that can be done, or just putting the mantras on for them to hear at the time of death. Are there more questions about that? Does that answer your question?
How can I get access to these pills?
We do have some here
Okay.
at the center, Lama.
We can talk outside this. I don't want to take up over, but if you have some.
But
No,
for
it's good. No,
anybody.
I think this
Okay.
is part of what we're talking about.
Okay.
So that's fine. It's totally relevant. And as Mike says, these are available. They're available at the center. So to just take one of these and you can put it in a little water. And if the dog is still able to drink, they can drink that, or you can just give it to them. And there's different kinds of things to do. But you try to preserve the life as pain-free as you can. It's fine to give medication. It's fine to give other pain-relieving things so that the animal is not suffering. I mean, if your grandmother was suffering, you wouldn't say, well, we're going to have to put you down now. It's true with all sentient beings.
Thank you.
Well,
It-
I was gonna say I just went through a really traumatic experience. I had to put my cat down, and it was just that he lost all feeling in his back legs. He could not move around. He was in pain. He couldn't poo. He couldn't pee. I mean, he couldn't do anything. Because he was paralyzed. And I had to put him down. I mean, there was no way he was going to live even a halfway decent life.
No, he wouldn't probably live long at all in that situation.
I'm sorry?
He probably wouldn't live long in that situation regardless. But to maintain, we don't know by stopping that karma and stopping that suffering, what suffering will occur in the next life. That it's kind of cleaning karma at the same time. And we should look at the pain that we suffer as karmic residue that we need to go through. Actually, we shouldn't think of it as usually we think as a negative thing, but for the most part, our suffering is the result of karma from past lives as well. And to recognize it like that, we don't try to push it. That's another way of shooting yourself with a second arrow, is to want to push it away. The Buddha said to know suffering. He didn't say push it away. He didn't say ignore it. He said know suffering. So we can know suffering, and in that way, embrace it. I know it's hard to do.
Tough thing to do.
Yes, it's a tough thing to do. Agreed. But it doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do. There's a lot of things that are hard. Cultivating virtue is not easy. It can sound easy, but we have these habitual patterns. We have these kleshas that make it very difficult for us to actually accumulate the causes and conditions that lead to liberation. And that is one of them. The bodhisattvas often went through tremendous suffering, but they didn't really see it as suffering. I mean, I wouldn't suggest that you cut off your arm for someone, or like the Buddha did before. Well, he wasn't the Buddha then. He was in one of his lives. He threw himself into the lion's den to be eaten, so the mother didn't have to eat her cubs because she was starving. The cubs were starving, but so he threw them in near Nepal, the place where Trungpa Monastery is. There's a place that's devoted to that particular action. So we have certain capacities, and none of it just depends on your capacity, to do those things. But we can't force it. But we're trying to be as mindful and compassionate as we can be.
Lama, when Amy had brought this up before, I did some thinking on it. We as humans in working in hospitals, or if you have a living will, you can set yourself up as a DNR. You do not want to be resuscitated. You do not want extra medical care done. That's
Yes.
not causing death. It's just not extending life. So can we also do this?
I mean, if you're being maintained on a machine, that's not life. I mean, so yes, that is a do not resuscitate order is fine, because without artificial means, you would die a natural death. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're not, there's no karma involved with that. You would die a natural death.
Well, as caregivers for our animals, then can we not also say my animal has a DNR, and that I'm not going to give this overdose that's going to cause this animal's death, but I can no longer give them medicine that might be prolonging their existence of suffering. Withholding care and not killing are two different things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, giving water or I mean, that is every situation is different, but to give them pain, meds or things that will prevent them from suffering, that is fine. But, if you're extending their life artificially, that is not beneficial.
Well, if karma is based on intentions, then in that situation, would the karma just accumulate based on your intention? If you're not giving water in order to like help them in a way, then that would necessarily be not a negative karma, right?
Your intention is important, but understanding, having the correct view about the animal being able to process their karma to the end is also important. I mean, we can have the best intention, and which is good. I mean, we want to have the correct intention, but we don't often have the wisdom to know what is best. So we have to always rely on the Dharma and the teachings to be able to make the best decision, because we are not Buddhas. We really do the best we can. So yes, your intention is important.
Sometimes it seems like having this wisdom makes it more difficult for us, because we know we don't, the ignorance, the deeper ignorance, I guess, as we begin to know more, at least in our minds, we have to make more decisions. We have to think more about these things.
We have to be mindful. Root cause of samsara is ignorance. That's one of the first things we said, avidya. So we want to try to undo our ignorance. And if we do that, which leads to wisdom, vidya, then the samsara is no longer a problem. Specifically, the belief in a single independently existing self. That is the hallmark of ignorance. Ignorance gives rise to the three poisons, and which lead to the creation of karma, which leads to rebirth in the 6 realms. So, we have to talk about liberation, in the Buddhist view. Beings can liberate themselves from samsara by following the Buddhist path. So yes, we have a responsibility. Yes, things become a little dicey when we have some knowledge. It's easier to do one thing than another, but we want to align ourselves with the Dharma. So to attain liberation from samsara, one must perfect the 3 higher trainings, which is self-discipline, meditative concentration, and the wisdom of emptiness. In a sense, the most important of these is the wisdom of emptiness. For when we understand the empty, non-inherent nature of the self and phenomena, the endless forms of delusion that arise from grasping at true existence are directly eliminated. However, in order for the training in wisdom to mature and become strong, one must first develop meditative concentration. So these all go together. And in order to develop and support concentration, one should cultivate the training in self-discipline. So that's why we say these higher trainings, self-discipline, meditative concentration, and the wisdom of emptiness are essential. So, we say in order to develop the support and support our concentration, one should cultivate the training in self-discipline, which calms the mind and provides an atmosphere conducive to meditation. And when one practices all 3 of these higher trainings and takes them to perfection, liberation from samsara is definite. The Dalai Lama has said, he emphasizes the importance of understanding the nature of samsara in order to be liberated from it. He states that one must understand the nature and patterns of the general sufferings that pervade all of samsara, as well as the specific sufferings of the individual realms, particularly the three lower realms. So we have, are there any other questions? We've been talking about several concepts. I think you're familiar with those concepts of rebirth. We've been saying samsara is the recurring cycle of rebirth throughout the six realms. Some non-Buddhist traditions believe that when one goes through the process of rebirth, there is a permanent self, a soul or an atman that is reborn. In the Buddhist view, there is not a permanent intrinsically existing soul or atman. In the Buddhist view, there is a transfer of consciousness from one life to the next. It's a constant state of change and flux, but this consciousness is a continuum, continually evolving, a continually evolving stream of consciousness rather than a permanent entity. And the driving force behind rebirth in the six realms of samsara is karma. So in the Buddhist view, again, therefore, the type of birth we have in this life is determined by our actions or karma from previous life. And the circumstances of our future rebirth are determined by our actions in this life. This view does not imply any blame or judgment of beings who are born into difficult circumstances or into lower realms. From the Buddhist point of view, again, all beings have been circling in samsara from beginningless time. Sometimes justification for judging beings who are less fortunate than ourselves, since we have all experienced every type of misfortune and good fortune in our previous lifetimes. We sometimes are judgmental about all that, but we have to understand that, and we have to take responsibility for our own karma. A proper understanding of samsara will lead to one having this compassion for all beings, including ourselves, who are trapped in this cycle of birth and death, and taking responsibility for our own situation. So when we have a negative thing happen to us, we shouldn't say, "Oh, why does this happen to me all the time?" Well, we have created that karmic circumstance for ourselves. So we need to take responsibility for it and embrace it, because that is the only way we can get on the other side of it. We don't blame ourselves. It's not that we're bad people because we're in samsara. It's not that we're sinners and we deserve to suffer or any of that kind of stuff. But it's just, when we're not mindful, when we don't take care of ourselves, when we don't explore what reality is and what it isn't, we will continue to get ourselves into messes. In some ways, it's very empowering. We have the power to create a wonderful next life for ourselves. If we get ourselves into messes, we're also ones that can get ourselves out of those messes. We don't have to create the causes of those messes. We are responsible for it. So that's where the Dharma is important. The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas can help us as we do the sadhanas and as we practice, guide us, our teachers. But we are the ones who are responsible. Like the Buddha says, he can teach, but he can't do it for us.
So Lama, basically he can lead us to water, but he can't drink it for us.
That's true. So the consciousness that transfers from life to life is identified as the Vijnana in the early Buddhist texts. And these texts assert that when the Vijnana is pacified, then liberation is attained. So while the process of Vijnana, this consciousness, our awareness, our mindfulness takes us to the place that it can grow and increase and thereby sustain. If we're in negative states, it sustains the samsaric life. They can also be calmed and pacified and brought to an end, marking the end of the cycle of birth and death. And that's brought about by practice, which counters the karmic activities perpetuating samsaric existence. So, in the Mahayana, it is taught in the Mahayana Buddhism that the main impetus to pursuing nirvana or liberation and enlightenment is compassion for all beings. The goal is to reach a level of development that enables one to ultimately benefit all sentient beings. That's why we dedicate the merit at the end of our practice. We wish to benefit all beings, and we should do it in your practice at home as well. You dedicate the merit that you're creating by your good actions and loving kindness and compassion for all beings. So within the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, reflecting on the defects of samsara is key aspect of spiritual practice. So one key practice that you probably are well aware of is the reflection of the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma. A series of reflections on the 4 topics: this precious human birth, it's not to be wasted; impermanence, this life is impermanent. We don't know how long we have, so we best make the most of it. And the defects of samsara or ignorance and karma. Our actions create a result. What kind of result are we creating? So we contemplate those 4 thoughts that turn the mind. Reflection on samsara emphasizes that we have been wandering in samsara since beginningless time. So within this reflection, spiritual practitioners cultivate compassion by reflecting that, in fact, all beings have been our own mother in a previous life. We have cycled in so many births.
I was going to ask you, how do you explain the increasing population?
People, it's not just this planet. There are endless beings who are migrating from place to place. It's not like there's a fixed number.
How much time, if you're realizing the impermanence of this life and trying to make the most of it, should you spend that time hanging out with them, Sarah? Shouldn't you let that suffering kind of go and move forward? Like, now I get it, move forward from this space. Those two, I can't.
The suffering's optional.
Okay. But then how do I reflect on it?
That's your koan.
I don't want to reflect on it.
It would be a good idea to reflect on it. Yes, we need to know it, as the Buddha said. And that's really what Vipassana is to, we have to tame our mind with the shamatha to make it workable, to train it, to be steady. And so we can place it evenly and constantly without distraction. And then once we do that, then we become able to really look at things as they are and wake up from our dream, our illusion of cyclic existence and the repetitive cycle of birth, death. We should consider that. And the grasping and fixating on a self and experiences. All the states of consciousness in the 6 realms, God realms, all of them characterized by pleasure, power, those kinds of things. Samsara arises out of ignorance and is characterized by suffering. We need to contemplate that and know it in our bones at the deepest level. That will change our behavior.
So Lama, I
Okay.
think we have about another 5 minutes. Would you like to, is there anybody else that has any more questions for Lama?
I just want to ask, when you record these, do they go, I know I've looked on YouTube for some of Lama Losang's recordings. Where would we find some of these if we wanted to go back and reflect?
They are usually on the Karma Takes Controlling Jacksonville YouTube page, depending on the topic. We record them and then we follow up with Lama to see if it's appropriate to share with everyone or the attendees. So we'll save this one and I'll ask Lama if it's okay. And we
Yes.
can share it. And then everyone can rewatch it if you'd like to.
And if you just Google Lama Losang, you will find other ones on Google. There are a number, I don't know how many, but there's quite a few of them that are out there circulating.
Thank you.
Yes, and I thank all of you for taking the time to practice the Dharma, to listen to the Dharma, and of course, to reflect on the Dharma and to put it into practice. It's good to hear it. It's good to contemplate it, but it's even better to practice it. So that is really the essence, is to put it in your daily life and not just leave it on the cushion. So in our everyday actions, we wish to benefit beings in any way that we can in our work and just developing compassion and loving kindness. Boy, right now we don't have to look far to see suffering. It is pretty much ubiquitous in so many ways: wars and famine and disasters of all kinds, whether it's flooding or fires or earthquakes or volcanoes, you name it. Now more than ever, it seems like the world is really in crisis. So we can't really help but have compassion for all suffering beings. And as we cultivate this loving kindness and compassion for all beings, it really is a vehicle for our own liberation, because it is the only way we can, again, be of true and lasting value is to be of benefit and cultivate this exquisite bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, loving kindness and compassion. So we can dedicate the merit if that's, and in your own practice, always dedicate the merit. In so doing, you accumulate merit. And it is said that merit is important in our progress on the path. It requires a certain amount of merit to understand the teachings of the Buddha, to be in an environment where those teachings are available. That is all meritorious. To come in contact with the Dharma, again, is not an accident. There's karmic causes and conditions. So just like a drop of water that enters the ocean and it merges with the ocean and it lasts for a long time because it doesn't get dried up as a drop would be if it hit a hot stone, it would just evaporate and be gone. We want to really enhance and expand our merit, and doing practices, we always dedicate that merit to the benefit of beings. And that drop of compassion generates an ocean of compassion. Any final questions or comments? So your dedication of merit is something that can be felt from the heart. It doesn't have to be a particular prayer that you read in a text. Better that it come from your heart and be a natural expression of your caring and love. So by simply saying, may my practice, may our practice tonight, our coming together, our the discussion of the 6 realms and our questions, may this time and practice benefit all sentient beings, and may they all come to enlightenment. May this practice benefit all suffering beings. It can be just like that. So we dedicate this merit for the benefit of all beings and their ultimate enlightenment. So I thank you. I think we can end here. We're pretty much on time, I think.
Thank you, Lama Losang. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Yeah, I think we talked about doing this on the second Tuesday. Is that right? We'll
Yeah, that sounds like a good, I think we can, the second Tuesday of the month, it sounds like a good, we'll start to have Lama Losang on the Buddhism Basics meetup, and you're all welcome to attend. I think, we had a wonderful turnout. I thank you all for coming and the excellent questions this evening. And thank you so much, Lama Losang, for your generosity of your time and teachings with us here at KTC Jacksonville. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, honor, and joy to do it. So have a good evening, and see you in a month. Next second Tuesday. Very good.
Thank you.
Lama. Thank you.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you, Lama Losang.
Thank you, Mike.
Good night.
night.
Thank you, Lama.
Thank you.